Gather around, dear viewers, for a tale of love, heartbreak, and second chances that will leave you as moved as a snow globe on Christmas Eve. Enjoy the story. Greg Grayson had everything he could wish for this Christmas season. A loving wife, Jessica, 3 adorable kids, and his pride and joy. Greg's Place, the cozy family restaurant he had built from the ground up over the past decade. With only a few days until the holiday, Greg was in full Santa mode, with his apartment brimming with carefully wrapped presents and festive decorations. He even hired a Santa to make a surprise visit for his children, Timmy, Sarah, and baby Noel, on Christmas morning. But Greg's picture-perfect holiday was about to take a turn he never expected. As he sat on the couch admiring his holiday preparations, Jessica entered, her face tense and serious. "Greg, we need to talk," she said quietly, taking a seat across from him. I've been seeing someone else," she admitted. Greg's world seemed to shatter in an instant. Jessica, his college sweetheart and the mother of his children, was now in love with someone else. He could hardly believe it. "It's been going on for months," she continued, her voice trembling as she twisted her wedding ring. "I didn't plan for it to happen, but I fell in love with him. I'm going to be with Mike." Greg was stunned. Mike Hannigan, his longtime friend, someone he trusted, had betrayed him. Anger and hurt surged through him as he struggled to understand how everything had fallen apart. "What about the kids?" Greg asked, desperation in his voice. "They'll be fine," Jessica replied. "Mike cares about them, and I'll be taking full custody. You'll have your restaurant, and I'll keep the house. It's only fair." The words stung. His entire life seemed to slip away, piece by piece. His wife, his children, his home. Feeling crushed, Greg packed a suitcase, took his faithful golden retriever, Biscuit, and drove to his small country cottage, 2 hours away. He knew he had to give Jessica space, but as he drove away from the city lights, he silently vowed to fight for his kids. They meant the world to him. The weeks that followed were tough for Greg. He felt lost, dividing his time between the worn-out couch in his rustic cottage and the back office of Greg's Place. Even the restaurant, once his pride and joy, couldn't lift his spirits. Trendy new eateries had drawn away many of his regular customers, and his heart wasn't in it anymore. One day, while Greg sat in his office picking at leftovers, Lori, his assistant manager, came in with a worried expression. "Greg, the produce order is here, but they forgot the arugula again. What do you want me to do?" she asked. Greg shrugged, his voice hollow. "Just handle it, Lori. I trust you to make the right decisions." Lori, clearly concerned, bit her lip. "Okay, I'll take care of it. But Greg, I'm worried about you. You've never been like this. Is there anything I can do to help?" Greg forced a smile. "Not unless you can turn back time. I'll be fine, Lori. I just need time." But time wasn't on Greg's side. That weekend, his friends Jim and Mike insisted he join them for a session at the athletic club. As the steam swirled around them, Greg poured out his heart, sharing his anger and sadness. "I thought we had a good marriage," he said, frustration spilling over. "How could she leave me like that? And for Mike, of all people?" Jim put a comforting hand on Greg's shoulder. "Forget her, Greg. You're better off without her. It's her loss." Greg shook his head, still overwhelmed. "You don't get it. I'm starting over at 45. I'm going to be that lonely guy with microwave dinners every night." "You're a good-looking guy, Greg. You'll be fine," Mike chimed in. "And hey, what about your assistant manager, Lori? She seems to care about you, don't you think?" Greg hesitated. "She's my employee. I can't think of her that way. It wouldn't be right." Mike rolled his eyes. "You've always been the good guy, Greg. But maybe she's the one keeping your restaurant afloat right now." A thought crossed Greg's mind. Maybe his friends were right. He had been through so much, and perhaps it was time to take a step back. So, when Mike proposed a bet, if the restaurant didn't make a big profit in the next month, Greg would sell it and start fresh. Greg reluctantly agreed. The next day, Greg gathered his staff and announced his plan. "I know there's been a lot of uncertainty, but I need a break. While I'm gone, Gina will be in charge." The staff gasped. Gina, a dishwasher with a rough past, had been with Greg's place for years. Greg had faith in her. "Gina knows this place inside and out," he continued. "I trust her completely." His mother, worried, pulled him aside after the meeting. "Greg, think carefully. This is your restaurant. Are you sure about this?" Greg nodded. "I have to believe in second chances, Ma, and Gina deserves one." As he prepared for a much-needed vacation, Lori came by to ensure everything was set. "Everything's ready for your trip, Greg. Gina's got the kitchen under control and I'll manage the rest. You just focus on taking a break." Greg was touched by Lori's dedication. "Thank you, Lori. I couldn't do this without you." And in a spontaneous moment, he asked, "Why don't you come with me? You've been working so hard. Consider it a bonus." Lori hesitated, then smiled. "Okay, if you're sure. Thank you, Greg." Their trip turned into a chance for both of them to unwind. They shared conversations over dinners and strolled along the beach. Greg found himself enjoying Lori's company more than he ever expected. She was warm, funny, and supportive, qualities he deeply appreciated. When they returned, they found Greg's place thriving in a way they hadn't imagined. Gina had revamped the restaurant into a cozy, family-friendly space, and customers were flocking back. Greg was amazed at the transformation, and over the next weeks he, Gina, and Lori worked together to build on this success. The restaurant was booming, and Greg started to feel like himself again. The pain of the past began to heal, and with Lori's support, he found hope for the future. Watching his restaurant fill with happy diners, he realized that he still had a lot to be grateful for. A month later, Greg invited his friends back to the restaurant for a celebratory dinner. He proudly showed them the books. Thanks to Gina's creativity, they had far exceeded their profit goal. Greg's place was back in its prime, and he was ready to embrace whatever came next. As he raised a glass of champagne, Lori by his side, Greg knew he was finally where he was meant to be. Life had thrown him challenges, but with determination and a little help from those around him, he found a new beginning, one he would cherish.